Hello, everybody. First off, I want to thank Jesse Dillon, Priscilla, and Patrick, who somehow picked me to be part of their film. It was quite an honor when they started emailing me, and with the type of story I have, sometimes I get these crazy TV shows. They're like, "Come on and tell us your story," Montel Williams type stuff, and I'm always like, "No, thank you." And they send me this email, and I look it over, and I was just honored to be picked, and honored that I got to come to this. So thank you. As you guys seen in the video, at one time I hated other people. There was definitely a problem with me from the get-go. My real last name isn't even Meeink. My real last name is Frank Bertolini. My mom left my Italian father in a different section of Philly, moved me to an all-Irish neighborhood, and said, "You got to get rid of an Italian last name, because that's how they are in Philadelphia. You're very ethnic." So I've always had identity crisis, I guess. And I'm going to open this up a little bit for some questions, but I wanted to let you guys know that I know that everyone's going to say, "Well, what made you get into it? What caused you to start hating other people?" And I'm going to tell you what happened was, when I left my mom's neighborhood and went back to my dad's neighborhood, he lived in mainly like West Philly, Southwest Philly. Some of you guys might know West Philly. It's Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, West Philly, born and raised on the playground where I spent most of my days. That's where I went back to school at, and I was 13 years old, and I was one of the only white kids in my school, and I got the crap beat out of me all the time. So of course I started to hate who was beating the crap out of me. So that summer, I graduated from school there, and that summer I went up, and a cousin was already involved in this skinhead thing. And at first the real thing that really kind of gravitated me towards it was they were older guys. They had cars, they had girls, they drank beer, they were cool. And then they started talking to me about what was going on in the world with politics and race, and I didn't know anything. When they said multiracial society would never work, I remember them saying that. And at 13 or going on 14 years old, I had no clue what they're talking about, multiracial society. But once they started talking about blacks and whites not getting along, I knew exactly what they were talking about. So that's what eventually got me in. And when I got into the movement, I really wanted to cling on to it. So I went to Bible studies, actually, and learned how to hate through the Bible. It's kind of funny. So I go to these Bible studies groups, and they pinpoint all these parts in the Bible, and anyone can talk to me afterwards. I can tell you these parts where they tell me that the Jews are the son of Satan, and you need to know this. So I'd be standing at these Bible studies, and I was born and raised very Irish Catholic. Like, my whole family's named after priests. So when I would go to these things, I would say, "Well, Father Wassel never taught me this story that you're teaching me out of the Bible this way." And they say, "Well, God chose you to know it now. God is revealing the truth to you. You can accept it if you want. You could be one of his foot soldiers, or you can just be another dummy on the side of the road." And I wanted to be a foot soldier. So now I get into it with religion. So now that backs up my beliefs a little bit more, that I am a chosen person of God to defend my white race. Of course, I go on into the movement, and I wound up going to prison for a little while, where in prison, I was out in the state of Illinois, and while I'm out there, I start playing sports in prison. And I'm really good. I mean, I'm just naturally, my father's side of the family was natural athletes. Give you a little hint, when I was a little kid, I wasn't allowed to play ball in the house. So I used to roll up a sock so I wouldn't break anything. And I would stand at the one end of my house in South Philly, and I roll the ball up, and I throw it, and I run to the other side of the house, and I catch it. I mean, that's like how naturally fast I was. So, because and I wasn't allowed to let the sock hit the ground. That was my game. I had plenty of time as a kid. So anyway, I start playing sports with these guys, and I start noticing the kids that show up to play sports every day were the same age. We were all basically urban kids, kind of, but I was the only white kid. And when we got done playing sports and we're walking back to our cell blocks, we'd always talk about the same thing, 100% of the time, girls. Who was the last girl you were with? What'd she look like? Do you have any babies on the way? I had a kid on the way, G had a kid on the way. See, because you couldn't talk to your older inmates about that stuff, because they just don't like hearing the young inmates who are getting out in a couple of years talking about their love life. When they're doing life, the older guys are doing life and their wives have left them. So we started to kind of get together, and I would get letters from my girlfriend, and I couldn't go read it to the older white guys. So what I do is I go down to the G cell or Jello cell. These are black kids I play football with from Chicago. And I go down to them and be like, yo, can I read this letter to you? I need to read it to somebody. I need to validate that this is real. This girl really loves me. And I would read these letters, and I swear, girls, if you wrote, I love you, and it was crooked, we analyzed it. Why did she write it crooked? Who is she thinking about? You know, was she not really writing it to me? I mean, we talked like that, you know? And when G would get them letters, he'd do the same thing to me. Right, and now a lot of people say, well, didn't they, because in the movie, they making you get out of the movement while I'm still in prison. That never happened. You would say, wouldn't the movement kind of frown at you playing sports with them? No, because I was that good. That the white guys thought, hey, look, he's just a white boy showing them up. He's representing, you know? So no one was ever mad. They just let me play. And again, I was the youngest kid in there for a while. I was 17 in this adult place, so anyway, I'm getting released from prison. I'm going to try and go back to that old life, and it's not working. Things just ain't gelling together anymore. And now I wish I could get up here and say, I have the solution to all racism, to racism. I have the solution. Here it is. It's in a bottle. I'll sell it to you. Doesn't work. What happened was God, a higher power, and I'll give you my definition of religion and spirituality in a minute, but this higher power consistently proved my beliefs wrong to me. Consistently kept putting people in my life at the wrong and at the right time. They'd be like, Frank, who the hell are you to judge? You're just another human being on this earth. How dare you judge anything that I've made? Anything. So he consistently kept doing that to me. And now I sometimes when I do some of these talks, I will tell people, I'm not religious at all. Born and raised very Catholic, and I'm glad that set my belief in a higher power to be true. But what had happened was my belief in the religion and spirituality. See, religion is that I'm afraid when I die I'm going to go to hell. Spirituality is I'm afraid I'm going to go back to the hell I've already come from. So that's where spirituality starts to come into my life every day. And I have asked just every day, can just ask God, please let me be a tool in whatever you need. This is my prayer every day, I'll tell you. It's very simple. God, please allow me to be the sharpest tool in your shed today, that if you should need me for work, I will be there. That's it. I can't ask him for anything. He's already provided me with enough. So now what I do is I went to a sport, and in Philadelphia, again, our neighborhoods it's 2 or 3 blocks all Irish, 2 or 3 blocks all Italian, 2 or 3 blocks all black. So when you're a kid and you're like 13 and you're trying to find a date in your neighborhood, you can't because we're all related. We're all second and third cousins. Every time I would find a new girlfriend, my grandma would say, oh, she's so-and-so's daughter, that's your 5th cousin. You can't date her, that's bad. So what happens is we have all these hockey rinks around the city. And we have a huge sports town. Philadelphia, we have the 76ers, we got the Philadelphia Flyers, just huge sports town. So I went to the Philadelphia Flyers and said, why don't we start playing hockey with these kids? Because when I was in prison, I played sports, and I kind of started to lose that edge on race. And the Philadelphia Flyers backed me, and we started playing hockey with these kids. Just getting different kids from different backgrounds, boys and girls, and we mix them up. We put them on these hockey teams together. Now, of course, hockey isn't known as the very diverse sport. It's pretty much a Canadian sport, and so. See, but when you get all these kids together, and you're always going to have that one bully kid who kind of comes into the program and thinks he's going to come in and learn hockey and be the next Wayne Gretzky. And when he gets out there, he's always the first kid to fall on his God-given bum, And when he falls on his little pants, you see that ego go. That's the problem with people like me. When you see the criminal element of kids coming up, You say, well, what's the solution? Or what's the problem even? Here's the problem. Our egos are here, our self-esteem is here. We just don't know it. Our ego tells us our self-esteem is up here. See, I was an egomaniac with low self-esteem. And when I put hatred in with it, I become very dangerous. So I started to change that up a little bit. How do you change it up? Well, with my hockey program, I'll tell you. Now I'm out in the Midwest. I get all these kids together, all different races, male, female. They're all about the same age, about 10 years old. I go into them and I say one thing. The first task, everyone has to do task every week for me if you're going to be on my team. Your first task is I want you to go home and do something nice for somebody and not tell them you did it. The hard problem, the hardest job you would think is doing the nice thing. That's not. Not telling them you did it is the hardest thing you will ever do. Even any of you go home and try it right now. You go home and you do something nice, you want praise. You want, oh, I took the trash out. I'm the greatest husband ever, you know? That's what you want. Well, when you tell these kids that go home and do the simplest things, but don't tell anybody. And I break it down at the end of the week when they tell me about what they've done. I say, so was it hard not to tell? And they say, yeah. I say, well, about 2 or 3 days later, I want you to look at it again and see if it's hard. And it's never hard because now they know why they did it. They just feel good. And that's what you have to do. Real quick, you know, we had the rabbi and archbishop come to talk to us last night, and they said some amazing things. I mean, just amazing things. But what to me was the most spiritual thing that those two guys did, when they both were going to get up on stage and they both wanted to let the other one go. That's the most spiritual thing, is they have so much respect for the other person. No, you go first. No, you go first. What I tell people, and people say, well, what do you do to make this big change? It's the little things in my life every day. I will hold the door for you. I will say thank you. I will say please. I will say have a nice day. Good morning. I do these little things for myself and, of course, for you. And notice when I put out, whatever I put out always came back to me. Always. When I put out hatred and violence, it always came back to me. When I put out love and respect, it came back to me. What goes around comes around.